Aloha, what's up everyone? I'm Jay Dreamers. Thanks for being patient for those of you who are watching the live stream. And welcome. I'm actually super excited to talk about this particular subject. I have a brand new microphone, courtesy of Best Buy, so thank you. Actually, courtesy of my wallet. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into some of the good stuff. Sounds okay. I did test it out. The sound should be good. So let me know in the chat. Let me know right now, please, if you can. It should be good. I think we're good, right? Everything's good? Yes, let's go. Are we good? Sounds good? Looks good? Mother Dragon stopped watching Bob Ross, etc. to be here. That's awesome. Okay. Good sound. Okay, one person. We got good sound. Sounds great. All right, cool. Well, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for letting me know. All right, so let's go ahead and start things off with a bang. I'm Jay Dreamers, and I have no idea what's happening on my channel right now. I have to constantly fix stuff. So hopefully this video doesn't suck. I'm crossing my fingers. I hope this video does not suck. I'm super nervous, in case you couldn't tell, because I hate messing it up. All right, anyways, let's go ahead and jump into what we're going to be talking about today. Today we're actually talking about the pillar worship, column worship. Let me get my notes up here. Oh, man. I'm all frazzled. Where are my notes? Oh, yeah. Columns, pillars, rods, towers, poles. Okay. You've seen these all over the place. I've seen them everywhere. And if it's a really interesting study, if you look up the symbolism behind it. Why do we see so many of these columns, towers, pillars, and whatnot, right? The one thing you know what? Let's take a look at some pictures first. Let's go ahead and pull up some pictures here. Is it this one? There we go. Okay, cool. So this is a perfect example, right? We'll start with this one right here. So you can see on a stela, on a carving like this one, there's many around the world. And on this one, you can see that there's clearly like some sort of post that goes straight up into the air, and right above it, typically they're always like found together, right? You've got the eye in the sky, which is what that is, the little wheel action above it. But you've got the pillar underneath it, the column underneath it. Now, I'd like to try to beat as many people to the punch as I can. I know it looks like a penis, okay? Let's address that off the start. Let's go ahead and talk about the phallic shape, because I've heard this a lot, and I've never liked it. I've never enjoyed this idea that there's a bunch of penis worshippers out there. That creeps me out, essentially. And all of our ancient ancestors worshipped a big old... Nah, I don't think so. So I'm going to disagree with that one. And I'm going to present to you my own insight as to why we see these different pillars and posts and columns and things like that. As you can see down here, it says, here's a couple that's worshiping a pillar. And this is worshiping of another pillar over here on the side. Here's another example. Okay, so this one obviously looks more like a column and not like a body part or whatnot. Why do people jump to that conclusion? Well, we're going to get there, okay? When you understand what it is, then you can understand the association with the sexual side of things, sexual symbolism and stuff, right? So I'm going to keep my head out of the gutter as we move forward. If you can or can't, I understand, because it cracked. I laughed many times when doing this study, so it's totally fine. I get it. But we will come back to that because it actually does play a part, and there's some interesting things to learn. This is a great example of pillar worship, of the sacred pillar, and what we're going to find out is the rod god. We're going to come back to that one here in a bit. But let's take a look at some more examples before we actually get into the presentation, right? Here's another example. People erect these pillars all over the place. I like the word pillar. There's many different ones. You could say tower, pole, Where's my notes? Tower, pole, column, pillar, rod. There's so many different names for them. Essentially, it's just something that sticks straight up out of the ground. People put them up, and people have been putting things like this up for thousands of years. Thousands of years they've been putting these up. In the Bible, there's commands from the biblical God not to like set up these pillars and to worship them and stuff like that. Here's the deal though. These pillars that are set up across the world, they're worshipped as gods themselves. Okay, it's not like here's a memorial, here's whatever. No, it's like it's worshipped. People have a reverence and an awe for them. Check out this one. Now, sometimes they take slightly different shapes, okay? So this one right here is called the Djed, which is where the word Jedi comes from, I believe. The Djed is an Egyptian. It kind of looks like this one too. This one's a real pillar that's been erected. It serves no purpose that I know of, okay? I've looked up many of these pillars. They don't do anything. They don't, nothing. They're just pillars. And oftentimes they have these little disc type things coming up the sides of them, just like the Djed does. See the Djed? Right? And do you see how they have a pillar, but then they personify it by adding human arms to it, right? Is there really somebody walking around that looks like that thousands of years ago with arms? Maybe on Halloween, okay? But otherwise, it's symbolic, all right? Here's another one of the Djed. This one's a really good one. You see how it's a pillar, it shoots up, but then it's got like these sort of layers that shoot out from the middle of it, right? And this is interesting because it breaks into two up here too. I want to talk about that. I believe that there are different sides to pillar worship, okay? There's the one pillar, and then there are the three pillars. There's the two, the one, and the three. We're going to talk about all of them right now. The Djed is a great example of the one pillar. Now, if you take a look at the Djed pillar in Egyptian... what is it? Pantheism? No, panthology? I forgot. The Egyptian gods, right? Look at that. You know what that looks like to me? It looks like what you see on high voltage power lines. You know what I mean? And there's a good reason for that, because this design is how the plasma or the electricity works in high voltage power lines. When you have plasma going from one to another, or even electricity, right? What happens is it starts to eddy off in the sides. It creates turbulence, and it shoots off on the sides. It sort of makes branches going outwards from it. We're going to get more into that here as we go. So that's the Djed pillar. Here's some other examples. I just wanted to share these with you real quick so that you can see how the pillar that shoots up out of the ground, which I believe is the blue beam. We'll get more into that if you're unfamiliar with that. But there's a blue beam and a plasma volcano that shoots up the blue beam every other cycle, every other world cycle that we go through, every other apocalypse, if you'd like to say it that way, right? This guy's really interesting. So his name, I'm going to come back to him, but I just want you to have a good little picture. His name is Rod. He's the rod god. And as you can see, he literally has a rod right there with him, as many gods in antiquity are pictured as having. Now, his rod also has the circle at the top and the half moon underneath, which gets into the plasma apocalypse symbolism of what the eye in the sky looks like. Here's another one. You'll see many pictures just like this across the internet. If you look up beams shooting up from the ground, etc., remember this. Many of you probably won't have any clue as to what this is. Don't worry, I'm going to tell you. Here's another one. These are little clues to just show you the end of our presentation from the beginning. All right, so we've seen all these different ones. Let's go ahead and take these off. Now I'd like to share my screen here. We're going to start with ceremonial polls, okay? Now, I'm on Wikipedia right now. I'm just going to put a disclaimer. I could care less if you hate Wikipedia or if you like it, okay? To me, somebody writes Wikipedia just like somebody writes a dictionary or an encyclopedia or whatever. I just use it. And I take it with a grain of salt. So, ceremonial polls, okay? Now, a ceremonial pole is a pole, quite simply put, that is erected during a ceremony. Why? What kind of ceremony? Usually something spiritual, usually something very religious. There is a sense of reverence and awe when they erect these poles and worship them, right? So let's check out what this says here. A ceremonial pole symbolizes a variety of concepts in several different cultures. Wow, really? I think that's kind of new to a lot of us, right? That people would erect just the pole all by itself. We're so used to decorating, and the trees and stuff, which we'll get to. But several different cultures. For example, in the Miao, is that how you say that? Miao? In the Miao culture of Yunnan, China, in the evolution of the idea of God, Grant Allen notes that Samoyeds of Siberia and Damara of South Africa plant stakes. A stake, just so you know, is not like a stake you cut off of an animal, but it's a pole. It's another word for a pole. I'll also throw this out there because I might forget. The original word for crucifix in the Bible was not a word that implied a crossbeam whatsoever. It was literally the word pole. Actually, it was literally the word staros, which means pole or staff. Let's see. So they plant stakes at the graves of their ancestors. According to Zelia Nuttall in the Fundamental Principles of Old and New World Civilizations, tree and pole reverence to Anu in ancient Babylon and Assyria. There's Anu's symbol for you right there. 6-pointed star. Essentially, that's the opening in the hole in the sky. So they planted these poles or revered trees in reverence to Anu, to pay homage to this god Anu. Now, On or Anu means of the heavens, of the sky. Anu is the great sky god, right? Essentially, we always have two. We've got the Mother Earth god or goddess and the sky god or goddess. Let's see what else we say here. It's extremely probable that the primitive employment of a fire stick by the priesthood for the production of celestial fire may have played an important role in causing the stick and thence the pole and tree to become the symbol of Anu. Interesting. Well, let's check out what other kind of pole worship, ceremonial pole worship, they have. In Asia, they have it in Myanmar. In Myanmar, Ke Hoto Bo is a Karenni ancient dance and a prayer festival that's held by the Min and the Kayan community in Myanmar or Burma. In the Kayan creation story, the Eugenia tree is the first tree in the world. Kehetobo poles are usually made from the Eugenia tree. It's got 4 levels to it, etc. All right, so that's theirs. So they have a pole that they erect to celebrate the creation of the world. Interesting. You're going to start seeing a pattern here. When you look into these creation stories, what you're going to notice, hopefully, because I've noticed it, is that there's always some sort of spear or ladder or beam or bar or pole or tower or whatever it is that shoots up right around the middle of the earth or the North Pole, and it's responsible for the part that it plays in the creation of the world as we know it. In Korea, they have Jangsong. Interesting, because that sounds exactly like a Mortal Kombat character. Jangsong or Village Guardian is a Korean ceremonial pole, usually made out of wood. So that's interesting. They've got those, and they frighten away demons. Interesting. So you'll find this. They call them tutelary deities. Check this out. A tutelary deity is a deity or a spirit who is a guardian, patron, or a protector of a particular place, a geographic feature, a person. So they put these poles up, and the poles represent something good every time, right? They represent protection. They represent health. They represent healing. They represent driving away bad forces, etc. In the Middle East, we've got the Asherah pole. Now, some of my Christian audience will be more familiar with the Asherah poles because they're condemned all throughout the Bible. They're like, nah, don't do that. Don't use Asherah poles. What is it, right? Well, Asherah is one of the ways that you pronounce this queen of heaven or this goddess of the sky, etc. It says an Asherah pole is a sacred tree or a pole that stood near Canaanite religious locations to honor the Ugaritic mother goddess Asherah, who is a consort of El. Every time, all you need to know, forget all these words, okay? All you need to know is sky god, earth god. Every time, sky god, earth god, or goddess. They're sort of interchangeable. But yeah, the Asherim were also called cult objects that were related to the worship of the fertility goddess Asherah, the consort of either Baal or, as inscriptions from Quintilet Arjud attest, Yahweh. So some people say that Asherah was actually Yahweh's wife as well. Interesting. And thus objects of contention among competing cults, right? The insertion of pole begs the question by setting up an unwarranted expectation for such a wooden object. We are never told exactly what it was, observes some guy. So check this out. This is very mysterious. When you do the research, you'll find that people can still find to this day these traditions that exist, right? That people are putting up poles left and right. They're setting up, they're stacking rocks. They're doing all sorts of things that's very similar, right? Across cultures and across the world. But nobody seems to really know why. Let's find out why. In South Asia, in present times, in Indian subcontinent, several festivals and celebrations. Let's see, they list a few of them. Central poles are features in temple and festival settings. Central poles, see that? Central poles, like columns, right? The central supporting column. We're talking about the column of the world, the spine of the world, the flower of the world, the tree of the world, whatever you want to call it. There is something in the midst of our world that appears from time to time, and it's a symbol that everything's going to be okay. It's a symbol that there's a new age. It's a symbol that healing and life are flooding back into this world, because we know it's kind of dead at the moment, right? We can feel it and sense it. What else do we have here? According to Adi Parva of Indian epic Mahabharata, a bamboo festival named Shakrotsava was celebrated in Khedi Kingdom. Let's see. Somebody was the king of Khedi, belonging to the Peru dynasty, and he was known as the friend of Indra. Hey, what's up? Thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. Indra is the lightning god, just so you know. He's the exact same as Zeus or Thor or any other storm god that you've ever read about, because to me, they're all the exact same, okay? All right, let's see here. Where do we get back to the poles? Why is it... Wait a minute. What? Wow. That was quite a lot of music. Okay. Hopefully everyone could still hear me over that. Let's see here. The king will pray for the expansion of his cities. After erecting the pole, people decked it with golden cloth and scents and garlands and various ornaments. Does that sound familiar? Like a Christmas tree, right? That's the main pole that you and I are used to worshiping, okay? Or showing reverence to, whatever you want to call it. Okay, I'm gonna say it's worship. Okay, it's a way of focusing your energy on an object to bring about something preferable, essentially. All right, so in Central Asia, they've got the Buryat and the Yakut peoples of Siberia place ritual poles called surge at the entrances to yurts or houses to indicate ownership and for shamanistic practices. Interesting. Another thing is that a flag is also a pole. Remember that. Okay? So the story goes that God, whatever God you believe in, God plants a pole. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, so God plants a pole, which is a flag or whatever you want to call it, and it indicates ownership as well. All right, so we go to Europe. Now we've got the celebration of the maypole. A maypole is a tall wooden pole erected as a part... Hold on. Can you guys hear that? If somebody donates, is there a lot of really loud music? Because it's in my ears. And I've got a lot of technical difficulties, so just let me know. I lost the chat. Let me see. Where are you guys here? Oh, good. Thank goodness, because it's super loud in my head. But thank you for the chat donations. I'm going to come back to those at the end here. Let's see. The maypole is a tall wooden pole erected as a part of various European folk festivals. So, I mean, the Europeans are part of this too, right? All over the world, everyone's erecting poles, dancing around them, decorating them, revering them. Why? What's going on? Where does this come from? And how is it that so many people are just blindly following this tradition and not having any explanation as to what they're actually doing or where it comes from? Let's learn about it, right? Now, the festivals may occur. This is talking about May Day, the maypole, right? It may occur on May Day or Pentecost. Interesting, Pentecost. Remember, we talked about Pentecost whenever we were doing some of our videos. Thank you. I appreciate you. So we talked about Pentecost, right? And why Pentecost is important. Because that's about the time that people start seeing all of the ghosts coming back up and stuff. Anyways, you'll have to check out that video. I'll get back into Pentecost another time. All right, so let's see. What else do we got here? Pardon me. All right, let's see here. In Norse paganism, cosmological views held that the universe was a world tree known as Yggdrasil. Let's see here, etc. Oceania. Okay, so in Oceania, in New Zealand, Maori mythology, Rongo, the god of cultivated food, especially the kumara, or the sweet potato, a vital food crop, is represented by a god stick called the Wakapakakoko. The Wakapakoko Atua. Wakapakoko Atua. Okay, essentially stick. That represents a god, okay? Isn't that interesting? There's also some interesting things down here that I have looked into a bit. There's the anthropomorphic wooden cult figurines seen across the world. The Djed pole. There's the candle pole, which is pretty self-explanatory. We're going to go over some of these. Let's check them out. There's also a book I ran across called The Sacred Tree, or The Tree in Religion and Myth, right? You can actually pull this one up here on Gutenberg.org. Read the entire book for free. There's a whole bunch of information here. It's a very long read. I'm not going to read it all to you right now. I just wanted to drop that in there because I'm going to check this book out. All right, we've got the totem pole. This is the one that a lot of people are probably more familiar with, right? The pole that goes up, usually there's some wings at the top, just like the, what's it called? The escapulus, I think. Right? Where you've got like the medical symbol, that's a pole. It symbolizes healing. There's a good reason for all of this. The pole shoots up. It's usually got some snakes twisting around it, which I'll tell you right now just represents plasma twisting around it. And like Birkland currents and, things like that. Then when it gets to the top, it hits the dome, it spreads out, it goes up, it lifts up, it creates what people call wings. They think it's a thunderbird. They think it's all kinds of different things in the sky, okay? But it's one thing that everyone is seeing. Let's see if they have anything else here with the totem pole that I can see. I've got a lot of stuff to share with everyone today. So here's some different examples of the totem poles. All right. I think totem poles are kind of self-explanatory. Let's keep on moving on. Anthropomorphic wooden cult figurines. Okay. All right. I'm just going to sum this one up. Essentially, they set up these like planks or poles or staffs or whatever, and they worship them as well. Oh, in a stone replica of a Zoanon found in France, the sculptor has reproduced the knot holes as eye-like openings on the side. So what's a Zoanon? We see a picture of one right there. Let's check that out. Oh, we also have the New Year tree too. I'm going to come back to the Zoanon in a bit. So just like we put up Christmas trees, in other countries, they actually put up trees for the New Year around the same time. I'm going to tell you right now, much of people worshiping the pole and setting up poles and stuff like that, they do that around Easter or around Christmas traditionally. Right? So just like the Christmas tree in the Soviets, in Russia, in Turkey, they will also put up poles. Or they will put up trees, essentially, right? It's the New Year tree. The tree is a pole as well. Oftentimes, they would just make a pole by cutting off the branches from the tree itself. However, you don't need to cut off the branches because the actual world tree, or the world pole, or the blue beam that shoots up from the plasma volcano, also known as Mount Meru or Rupas Negra, it shoots up, and at first it's just a staff. When it first shoots up, boom, it's just a pole. It's just a staff. It's just a column in the sky, right? But after a while, these eddies start building, and there's turbulence, and there's plasmic turbulence and stuff, and it starts branching out. And guess what it looks like? The world tree, right? Now, since I'm on the Christmas one, I don't know if I have it up here. Do I have it? No, I don't. So there was actually an episode of Seinfeld where they created their own alternative to Christmas, and they called it Festivus. In the Seinfeld episode, this is truth on TV, but they put up a poll, just a poll, because they figured, it's the opposite of Christmas. Instead of everything flashy and whatever, they set up a poll on Festivus around the winter solstice. All right, so what else do we got here? We've got, we talked about the Christmas trees and the New Year's ones. How about the Shagir idol? The Shagir sculpture, right? If you can see that right over here by me. This thing's probably like, I don't know, 15 feet long or something like that. Let's see here. The sculpture was discovered January 24th, 1890 at a depth of 4 meters or 13 feet in the peat bog of Shagir in the eastern slope of the Middle Urals, etc. How long is this thing? Anyways, as you can see, it's a long pole, okay, with a face on the top. This is another example here. This is interesting to me. This is interesting. Hey, thank you. This one right here is interesting to me because it is the oldest known wooden sculpture in the world. Interesting, right? So one of the oldest images is just a pole straight up. It's just a column that goes straight up into the air. All right, here's another one. We talked about the world tree. So as you can see on this image off to the side of me here, we've got the world tree. The world tree traditionally shoots up right from the middle or the North Pole, and it touches the sky and it branches out. There's many different references to a world tree across the world. Okay, so to me, there's so much evidence for a world tree existing that I'm looking for a world tree. Like, where did the world tree go? There was obviously a world tree at some point in time. I look outside, I don't see one, but I should. So something happened. All right. So it falls to us to figure out what happened. Where did the world tree go to? And will it grow back? Will it come back? We also have the world tree in various places like America, the pre-Columbian America, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Norse, Baltic, Lithuanian, Latvian, Slavic, Finnic, Judeo-Christian, Armenian. I mean, this is everywhere. The world tree concept is everywhere. So I'm going to go down and let's see if I highlighted anything. I'm going to go ahead and skip the world tree because I've done many videos about the world tree. There's a good one right there. I like that one. This is also where you get like the Hanukkah candles, candelabra and stuff like that. All this stuff is related to plasma physics and the alternative geography and cosmology of our local world. Next up, we've got my favorite one. I couldn't wait to talk about this one. This one right here, if you could see it behind me, there's actually a couple of figures there. You see them? And there's a pole or there's a column there in the middle. Now on the left, you've got Nike or Nike, which is the goddess or god of victory, and offers an egg to a snake entwined around a column surmounted by the Trojan Palladium. So what is this Palladium deal, right? Essentially, the Palladium was this magical pole, magical column, right? That's all it was. It was just a column. And they said that it rested in Troy. Okay, so as long as the Palladium or the Palladion, right, as long as that rested in Troy, then Troy would be safe. But the second somebody stole it and took it away and it disappeared, all of a sudden Troy would be open to being sieged or attacked, right? It says it was a cult image of great antiquity on which the safety of Troy and later Rome was said to depend. Now, they say it's a wooden statue. It's a wooden pole or post or whatever. Really? That doesn't sound about right to me, right? It's just a simple old piece of wood, whatever. Now, I want to also throw this out there. I'm actually referencing throughout this video the greater scale of the plasma physics of our world and the world tree, the world column, the world pole, whatever you'd like to call it. And there's more than one, I believe. We're going to get to that too. However, that doesn't mean that this can't be brought down and recreated on a smaller level, on a miniature level, that we could take the technology that we understand from the macro above, the greater and bigger things, and make small versions of them, right? We totally can. So check this out, palladium. That's what this thing is. Palladium to me, now we're going to jump into etymology, some etymological studies. Palladium sounds like paladin. If you don't know what a paladin is, then you probably don't play World of Warcraft or Dungeons and Dragons or anything, but that's fine. A paladin is essentially a cleric. If you don't know what that is, that's fine too. It's a healer, okay? So a healer who specifically, works for the king or the queen or you know what I mean? Somebody who is like around the castle or whatever. So let's look up the word paladin, right? Oh, here's this other one too, the Zoanon. I wanted to show you that one real quick too because they referenced it earlier. That's all it is. Nothing special. It's not a person, or it's totally blank. It's just a pillar that has little plasma torrents on the side there. That's all it is, right? Nothing special unless you understand what it represents. Then all of a sudden it has all the significance in the world. It becomes one of the most important symbols that you can possibly have, talk about, teach about, or learn about. And that's why it's so interesting, right? Everyone else who sees it's going to say, whatever, that's dumb. Like, okay, why is that important? But it's because they don't know what it represents, right? So that's called the Zoanon. Let's check out this word paladin, right? So, paladin, in reference to the medieval romance cycle, one of the 12 knightly champions in attendance on Charlemagne. Okay, blah, blah, blah. That's very boring. From French, paladin, a warrior. From Italian, paladino. From Latin, palantinus. Palace, official. There we go. That's where the word comes from. See that word palace? Paladin, the in just means of the. That's all it means. One of the. Palad. So palace, essentially, is where we get that, right? So if that's palace, let's check out palace. What's the etymology of palace? Well, obviously, it's the official residence of an emperor, a king, a queen, an archbishop, some sort of royalty, right? But where does this word actually originate? Where does it come from? Let's check this out. You see, where is it? The Palace Hill, that's actually kind of interesting to me. The hill name perhaps is ultimately from palace, which means stake. Like a stake in the ground, or a stake through the heart of a vampire. A pole. That's it. That's all it means. Palace, or the root of paladin, means stake or pale. Like to impale, right? To put a stake through? Well, let's see what this pale word is, right? Wait, is it? Yeah, let's click on pale. Let's see what we got here. Is it next? Oh, yeah, I'm going to come back to that. So pale. This is very interesting. So check this out. This is the root of the word pillar or pole, okay? Or any of these words, stake, whatever you want to word you want to use. This is the original word, okay? Pale. So it means stake, pole, stake for vines, whatever. From Old French, pal. Do you see that? So the word friend, pal, hey pal, right? Literally is related to the pole or the stake, which has good vibes, right? It's always good. It's never referenced in some sort of an evil way. It's a protector. It's a healer. It's there to get rid of all of the bad frequencies and demons and stuff like that. The word pal, directly related to the word pole or pale, right? From the Latin palus, or stake, a prop, a wooden post. It's going to get more interesting. Hold on to your seats. Which is from the Proto-Indo-European boxlo, which is a suffixed form of the root. Here's the actual word right here, pag. Do you see that word right there? That's the oldest word that they could come up with that is related as a root to the word pale or pole, right? Like the North Pole, that's why they call it that, right? It literally has a pole. Not just an invisible one, but one that's recognizable from time to time. Now, pag conveys stake, it conveys pole, it conveys these different things, but what it literally means is to fasten. Pag. Now let's say pog in cowboy American accents. Pag. Or peg, right? Pag or peg. So someone who is of the pole would be a pagon or a pagan. Isn't that interesting? It also means to fasten. You know what else means to fasten? A hook. In Hebrew, well, am I getting ahead of myself? Hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to that word paladin, right? Paladin means healer, essentially, right? I thought that was interesting, right? Because it sounds just like Aladdin or Aladdin, right? So I'm like, wait a minute, Aladdin is Arabic. So is he just paladin without the P? So let's ask, does Arabic have the letter P? Contemporary written Arabic does have the letter P with 3 dots that was added to accommodate foreign words like Pepsi, but it's rare to meet an Arab who can pronounce the letter P, right? They say Pepsi, Bepsi, literally. So there is no letter P in Arabic, right? I mean, they recently added one just to accommodate Pepsi or whatever, but there's no letter P. So Aladdin literally could have been Paladin, and that's his name. Isn't that interesting? I find that to be super interesting. All right, so we talked about Aladdin. Now, if you look at Aladdin, he goes into this cave of wonders to find this magic lamp that gives him wishes and makes his dreams come true, right? I believe that at the crux of our world, at the North Pole, there is a plasma volcano, right? And when the plasma is not erupting out of it and shooting out of it, creating that pillar of light, that blue beam, that column of light, whatever you would like to reference it as, right? The light of the rod light, whatever. You can go into it, right? You can go down into the cave of wonders and go into the world itself. So Aladdin literally follows this, goes down into the cave, and there's right there in front of him, literally, a pole or a rod or a column or whatever you would like to call it, right? I thought that was interesting too. Now, how about the word pillar? I'm going to tell you right now, pillar just means polar, right? Like the pole. But it also has the AR at the end, which if you look that up, AR translates to the word light. It's the or the aura, right? It means light or fire sometimes, but it's the staff of light. It's the beam of light. A pillar literally means beam of light, like if you take it far back enough, right? So let's check this out. A word of unknown etymology from Pile, etc. They try to figure it out, but they're basically like, we don't know where this comes from. We don't know where the word pillar comes from. It's pretty simple. It comes from the word pole and then light pole. All right, do we have anything else with pillar? Let's find out. Oh, pole. Let's go ahead and look up pole real quick. Stake, staff, or in Old English, pal, like we already talked about. Let's see, from Paxlo, which means to fasten, pag, which means to fasten, right? So think about that. The origin of the word pole is pag or peg, however you'd like to say it. Let's look at pagan, right? Pagan. Let's clear this up because I don't like how people use the word pagan like it means something evil or immoral or bad. I don't like that. A person of non-Christian or non-Jewish faith. Okay, sweet. That would be me so far. Ish, you know what I mean? Like, I love Christianity. I love all the religions. I glean from all of them. So I have a reverence and a respect for them. From the late Latin paganus, or pagan in classical Latin, a villager, someone who's rustic, a civilian, non-combatant, etc. It comes from the Proto-Indo-European root peg, which means to fasten, right? Pagans are those of the fastener, the great fastener. See, here's the thing. Imagine this. Why is this concept of attaching or fastening to something? Why is that so important? Because this great pillar, this great pole, this staff, whatever you would like to call it, this column that shoots up out of the ground is fastened to the earth. And that's where you get this concept from. So for example, right, if you look up in Hebrew and you learn about the letter Vav, okay? Let's check this out real quick. I'm just going to show you a quick article just to show you what I mean here. The word Vav means hook, like Maui's hook, right? There's a reason that they put this everywhere. Or Nike, victory, the goddess or god of victory, right? Has a hook or a swoosh, whatever you would like to call it. Same thing. The word Vav means hook. It means spear or a tent peg. Why is it tent peg? Not any other kind of peg, right? Why is it specifically a tent peg? Because a tent peg is meant to fasten into the earth. It's meant to go into the ground and still be seen above. That's what we're talking about. So the letter Vav is literally our number 6, right? It also looks like a pole. It looks like a staff, whatever you like to call it. And that's the number 6. So the peg on are those of the pole. Those of the symbol of victory, which is the blue beam that shoots up. That's the symbol that all of the chaos of the apocalypse has come to an end. And we usher in the golden age, or things are going to get better, essentially. Interesting about that. All right, so we talked about the origin of the word pole and how it's related to the word pag, which means to fasten, means a hook, means a spear. It means all of these types of things, which gives new meaning to the spear of destiny, right? The spear of destiny for Jesus and things like that. There's also, in Catholicism, a church called Our Lady of the Pillar. I kid you not. Our Lady of the... what pillar? I've read through this entire article. Look how big this article is. Okay? I've read through it. Not once does it describe why she's standing on a pillar or why she's a part of a pillar, right? You can read through all of this. All it says is that pillars were these images, people erected them, etc. You know, the God of the Bible didn't really like it, but everyone seemed to do it for some reason across the world, worldwide. They would always have Mary, the mother of Jesus, standing on top of a pillar, usually radiating, glowing, sometimes holding a torch. But she was known, and is still to this day, this is an active church, still to this day known as Our Lady of the Pillar. Not a pillar, or Our Lady of Pillars, Our Lady of the Pillar. One pillar. When there's just one, usually it's worldwide, right? There's so many different images. I highly encourage you to type it up and you'll see all these different images. But I'm going to skip that one just for the sake of time. Here's another example of Our Lady of the Pillar. I brought this up when breaking down some movies before. You'll see this at the beginning of the show. They're letting you know, she's standing on top of a volcano, which is the unfinished pyramid, and then the blue beam shoots out and makes a light, etc. Columbia literally means column, okay? Now, some people will do a word study on Columbia and they'll reach a dead end because they'll say, oh, Columbia just means dove. That's all. Do you see a dove? I don't. There's no doves there. The reason that doves are named after columns is because those are the birds that usually hang out on the columns. They actually dive bomb, okay? They drop down, they fall. They are the fallen birds or the fallen, whatever you want to call them, of the pillar. Just like if you imagine this is the North Pole right here, and this blue beam shoots up, and let's say that's like the North Star or something or whatever, or that's the eye in the sky. It could be either way. This mountain, this plasma volcano, is known by many different names. Mount Meru, Mount Olympus, the mountain with the burning bush. I mean, it's all these different ones. This is where the gods land, or the angels, or the demons, or whatever you would like to refer to them as. They land here, just like doves falling down from the top of the column. Interesting, right? Then we've got what's known as a votive column. I'll save you some reading. This is just basically they put a column up and then they put a figure on top of it, just like Our Lady of the Pillar. It's called a votive column. This one right here is kind of interesting. This one is called the Zbruch idol. The Zbruch idol. It's just a pillar. People erected them. Now, sometimes they carve stuff into them, just like they do the totem poles. Remember that, right? So they'll tell some stories and stuff, right? To give a little more context than just a pole. Because originally people might totally be on point and be like, yeah, I know what the pole represents. Duh. I know what the column represents. I know what the tower represents. But after a while, people forget. So they start drawing the story on it, just like this one. Let's see here. Did I have anything of interest to read on this one? I don't think so. All right, let's skip this one. Now we're going to go to, Rod. The Rod God. This one cracks me up so much. There's literally, just the fact that there's a god called Rod busts me up. I love it. I had no idea. This is the first time I came across Rod, right? Rod He seems like he'd be cool. He seems like a cool god. I don't know. Rod, the cool god. Anyways, let's check this out. It's from the Slavic religion. So Rod, let's check him out. In the pre-Christian religion of Eastern and Southern Slavs is the god of the family, ancestors, and fate, perhaps as the supreme god. Among Southern Slavs, he's known as Sud, or the judge. He's usually mentioned together with some other deities. One's first haircut. This is interesting. So in the Slavic world, when you get your first haircut, it's dedicated to Rod, to the rod god. Why would that be? Could it possibly be that the rod is responsible? Imagine all that plasma coming down like, I don't know, Medusa's hair. That rod appears and all of a sudden the electromagnetic dome of our world goes back up, whoosh, cutting off all that hair of God or hair of Medusa or fingers, whatever you want to call it, right? And now they celebrate and they give honor and they pay homage on their first haircut to the rod god. How cool is that? How interesting is that at the very least, right? Let's see here. So yeah, that's Rod. Rod's name is confirmed in Old Church Slavonic and Old East Slavic sources about pre-Christian Slavic religion. The name is derived from the Proto-Slavic word rod, meaning family, birth, origin, clan, but also yield and harvest. You'll also find out that whatever deity is represented by this pole, by this rod, by this column, by this tower, what are other words? By the spear, whatever. It's so many different words, right? Whatever deity is represented by them, they are also the deity of the harvest or the deity of procreation, or, you know, everything is in blossom. Everything is in bloom. Everything is coming back to life. That's because it appears immediately after the cyclical apocalypse, affectionately known as the plasma apocalypse cycle, right? Let's see here. So also called the guardian or the keeper. Interesting. Like the gatekeeper? The gate above, right? The guardian, the one who's guarding, the one who's protecting. Now check this out. The Proto-Indo-European root word, where they get the word rod or rod, is root. It literally means root. That's super interesting to me because it grows from the earth. It comes up from the ground and it means root. Jesus was also called a root. Interesting. Let's see here. What else? Anything else about Rod, the rod god? I'm not in the chat, just so you guys know. I wanted to make sure to respect your time because this is going to be a long presentation. So I may jump in the chat at the end, but right now we're just going to keep on going. All right, what else? The cult of Rod. Rod. Like, who do you worship? I worship Rod. There he is right there. There's Rod. He's doing that thing, too, with the fingers, where they do like that. I've talked to you guys about that. All right, so anyway, let's see. Rod. I think that was pretty much all I got on Rod. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff here. So we're going to skip Rod. I just think it's cool. I like saying it. The Rod God. Oh, the Djed. Remember the Djed? Remember that thing that thing right there behind me? See that thing? That little tower looking deal? So check this out. Let's read about the Djed. First of all, my Djed would be Jedi or Jedi, right? Interesting. So if you personalize it, it literally says Jedi. The Djed, or the pillar, which is what it means, is one of the more ancient and commonly found symbols in ancient Egyptian religion. Wow. Imagine that. This, something that looks like modern day electrical tower, is actually commonly found all throughout the ancient Egyptian culture. Who would have thought? It's a pillar-like symbol in Egyptian hieroglyphics representing stability. This symbol tells you everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to get better now that you've seen me. It's associated with the creator god, Ptah, and Osiris, the Egyptian god of the afterlife, the underworld, because that's where it comes from, and the dead, because it raises the dead to life, I believe. It is commonly understood to represent his spine. Isn't that interesting? This is the spine of the world. This is the spine that goes up to the rim of the world, right? These are parts of our world that pop up from time to time. You can see the Djed on a ring right there. You can see some twisty plasma type deals happening there. Anyways, that's really interesting to me to see this Djed. Now you see in this image of the Djed, they give it arms. Why? So that it can hold something up. What's it holding up? A giant circle. What could that be? Planet X? Nibiru? The all-seeing eye? The moon? Who knows? Okay, I'm going to say it's the hole that opens up in our atmosphere, in our sky, at the North Pole. It's going to look like Planet X. It's going to look like Nibiru. It's going to look like something's about to smash into our world because we think three-dimensionally. So when we see a two-dimensional hole open up in the sky, we're like, it must be a planet, but it might not be, right? All right, so that's the Djed. I thought the Djed was really cool to point out. There are parallels in other cultures of the Djed, usually the sacred tree. If you look at it, kind of resembles a tree, sort of, right? All right, so these are more examples of the Djed. Sometimes they put the Ankh in there as well. Let's go ahead and pass up on the Djed now. Asian month, okay. Thanks, Wikipedia. Now, what does the Djed look like to me? It looks like a pagoda, right? I look at the ancient architecture of the world, just like many of you. We're starting to reconsider our own architecture. Why did we build things in the shapes that we built them in? It seems unnecessary. I doubt that the old world was just wanted to show off that much. You know what I mean? I don't think it was so much about art as it was practicality. The shape, the design worked. Like I said, you see this design, and this is what plasma does, right? This could be a giant electrical conductor, essentially, where the electricity shoots out. It rivets out to the side as it continues to flow. And if you make a building like this, it actually acts as an electrical inhibitor. It won't let it out. So it'll keep the electricity inside of the building, right? Or direct it directly to the ground. Interesting, right? So we start designing things after the stuff we see, right? Hey, if God made it look like that, why don't we make it look like that? Essentially. So this right here is a clip from a video from somebody who is giving a lecture on the electric universe model, also known as the Thunderbolts project, where essentially the blue beam shoots up. Now, they do have a slightly different view of it. They believe that the beam comes from the sky, whereas I believe the beam comes from the earth. I do believe that there is a beam of light, which will just come from the sun, that is going to be the blue star Kachina, where it literally creates sunlight that burns, right? But that's not really the beam that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the reversal of the polarity so that the energy of our world goes upwards and the energy inside the world comes up and shoots out plasma from Mount Meru, and it touches the heavens. So this is what you get. You get what he's pointing at right now, which is the beam shoots up. It creates a torus in the middle, right? A little toroidal field. And then it's repelled by the magnetosphere, I guess you could call it. It's repelled by the magnetic force. So it branches out at the top, creating what looks like a grail or a cup or somebody's arms reaching up and praising, or somebody's arms reaching up and holding on to something. And then at the bottom, it does the same thing because it's wrapped around the magnetic plasma volcano, the black rock at the middle of our world. So it conforms to that as well, creating legs. It looks like what people would call the squatting man. Here's another few images from some of these videos as well. You can see that the plasma shoots up in a beam, but after a while, it starts creating these little eddies off to the side, little branches. Sometimes it looks like a caterpillar, sometimes it looks like a tree, sometimes it looks like a ladder, various things as it twists. Now, let's get into more than one pole, more than one column. Because I believe there's a central column, there's a central pole, but I think that there's at times up to 3 different ones. I'll explain what I mean by that, but first let me show you some other images. Here's some more images of the squatting man as seen across the world in various petroglyphs, rock drawings, carvings, etc., and so on and so forth. It's very popular drawing. Most people have no idea. They're just like, wow, Native Americans had wild imaginations, or they were terrible drawers or whatever. I don't think so. I think they were drawing exactly what they saw. And the reason it's outside on the rocks usually is because they're standing there looking at it, carving it, right? So this is what they saw. It turns into different things as it grows and flows, as we should too. But anyways, so yeah, I wanted to share those images with you. One moment, please. Pardon me. All right, so let's move on. Now, we're going to switch gears from the one column, from the world pole, the world tree, to the three. Now, some of you may have studied and looked into the secrets of Freemasonry, which kind of make me laugh because to me, they're not secrets. So, I mean, to me, it's just as easy as I could just tell you all the secrets, but most people would not believe it. They wouldn't get it. They wouldn't even understand, whatever. So I guess it's a secret. You know what I mean? So let's check this out. In Freemasonry, if you look up columns, if you look up pillars or whatnot, typically you'll have two. So let's check out one. Let's see if we have an image of the two real quick. I'll come back to this guy. Well, this guy has two, right? Let's take a look at this. Nah, that one's too detailed. Let's find, oh, here we go. Boom. This one's perfect. You see that one that's like, boom, right in between my head? It's got a J and it's got a B. Okay, one's red, one's blue. These are the two pillars, the two main pillars, I would say, the two most popular ones of Freemasonry. These are the two columns that were erected outside of the Great Temple on the north and the south sides, I believe. Now, you have to ask yourself what you think the Great Temple is. I have an idea in my mind, but I'm not going to spoil it for you. So these are the two temples. These are the two columns, the two pillars that are outside of the Great Temple. I'm going to give you a hint and say the Great Temple of the world. Okay. Now, this one's got a J on it because it's named. They have names for these columns. One's name is Joachim. Okay. Sometimes it's pronounced Joachim, Joaquin, Joachim, Joachim, Joachim. Basically, it's Johann, okay? Johann, it means beautiful, essentially, and some other things. But it also, you can shorten Johann to John. So if you ever wonder what their hang-up with John the Baptist is, look no further, okay? This pillar right here is Joachim or Joachim or John or various other ways to pronounce it. Okay, so you've got that pillar. And then you've got this pillar, which is Boaz. Boaz means strength. So one's beautiful, one's strong. These are the two pillars of Freemasonry. You can look this up and you can find all sorts of different wonderful examples where they always have these different symbols, right? Checkerboard floor, a ladder going up to the sky, the letter G. These two pillars every time. Boaz and Joachim. Interesting. If you take a look at this one, you'll notice the all-seeing eye is right there smack in the middle of the two pillars. But check this out. I'm going to skip a little bit because I could break down all of the Freemasonic symbolism just like I do. You see this in the movies. I mean, they practically just tell you what it is every time. But anyway, let's go back to these pictures. Where did I have that one? This one right here is interesting to me. First, I'll show you a good version of it. Now, believe it or not, this is actually a certificate and award that's given to a Master Mason. Let's go ahead and read it. It says, a Freemason, formed out of the materials of his lodge. Behold, a Master Mason, rare. I'm sorry, let me read that again. It's a poem. Behold, a Master Mason rare, whose mystic portrait does declare the secrets of Freemasonry, fair for all to read and see, but few there are to whom they're known, though they so plainly here are shown. Now, here's another interesting thing. Do you see how it says Mason with an S right there? Papa. S. S. But right here, that's not an S. That's an F. Look at this other one. I'm going to go down. They draw the same image, the same picture over and over and over. Like, that's why they all look so different. So these are hand-drawn. And this one does not have S's. They have F's. Isn't that interesting? Some cultures, if you go further back in time, cannot pronounce certain letters, just like we talked about with the Arabic nation or world. They can't pronounce the letter P, typically. So there's other cultures that could not pronounce the letter S. They would say sh instead of s, or vice versa, right? Interesting. So this says, a free mason, formed out of the materials of his lodge. Behold, a mafter mason. Isn't that ridiculous? Anyways, I want to read the whole thing again. But the reason I wanted to show you this particular image, let me get this one away, is because look at this dude's legs. This mason, this master mason, is made out of all the different symbols. Let's just learn 2 of them, okay? Let's start simple. There's a column, there's a column. Those are the 2 columns that surround the temple. Boom, in the middle, right? Let's go a bit further real quick. Where's the 3 columns? Do I have a picture? Hold up, go back. I want to show you the 3 columns real quick. There's got to be one with 3 columns. I'm just going to type it in. Hold on. Masonic imagery, 3 columns. Boom. Perfect, perfect. Here we go. All right, so if you start looking more into it, you'll find that they don't just have the 2 columns. Sometimes they have a 3rd one. Sometimes that 3rd one's missing. Isn't that interesting? We've got this appearing and disappearing and reappearing pole or column or stake or staff or crux or cross or hammer or whatever you want to call it or refer to it as, right? Sometimes it's there. Sometimes it's not there. Sometimes it's missing, right? Interesting. So let's check this out. I'm going to tell you right now, the one that's missing sometimes and is in the middle, it's always in the middle. You can see it right here, right? So you've got one, another, and then the one in the middle there. That's more like the tree of life. You've got it here, wisdom, strength, and beauty. So beauty, Joachim, strength, Boaz, and wisdom in the middle is the pillar god, which brings wisdom to the people of the earth. It doesn't just heal or anything. It actually makes people get it. It makes people snap out of their robotic days and understand things way more in depth. So here's a good one. Sometimes they put an S on this one because that one actually is for Boaz, for strength. This one has a B, not for Boaz, but for beauty. See how confusing it can get if you don't research? And this one has a W for wisdom. That's the central pillar. That's the world pole. Look what's directly above that one. Boom. The eye, the all-seeing eye directly above it. Just like that very first image that we started with, you've got the column and then you've got the wheel right above it every time. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. All right. So I wanted to show you the 3 pillars. Now, if we understand the middle pillar as being the world tree or the pole, what in the world could be these other 2? Well, I've spent days looking it up, right? Before we get to that, I want to share some other things here. Let's talk about, speaking of pillars, we can't talk about pillars and posts and whatnot without talking about the biblical character known as Samson, right? Samson, or Shamashon. Shamash means the sun. On means of the. Samson is of the sun, essentially. Which sun? That's up to you. Anyways, so Samson, the thing that's important about him is the way he died. Samson was requested to be put in between the 2 largest supporting pillars, and he wanted to get rid of them. He wanted to break them, right? And that's how he died. Essentially, the world caved in on him. Boom, or his world, the temple caved in on him, and he died because he broke these 2 pillars. Now, I was reading about Samson. I'm like, you know what? Samson and these pillars actually reminds me of Hercules. You guys remember Hercules, sometimes known as Heracles, right? Hercules had these 12 labors. I think there were 12, right? He had these 12 jobs, totally ridiculous, crazy, weird tasks that he was sent to go do. One of these tasks was to go defeat this creature known as Geryon. Geryon was a 3-bodied, 4-winged giant who lived on the island of Erythea in the westernmost reach of the earth, encircling the river Okeanos or Oceanus. Now check this out. Follow me for a minute because it's going to get cool. He possessed a fabulous herd of cattle whose coats were stained red by the light of the sunset. Interesting. So cattle. Let me just jump on that real quick, okay? I'm going to give you a hint. I believe Hercules went to the North Pole. And I believe that he was there, saw the blue beam, etc. And at the North Pole, there are what people today would call cows or cattle, but not cows like like modern cows. I mean cows like giant creatures like woolly mammoths. Okay? So, possibly another interpretation. Anyhow, Heracles or Hercules was sent to fetch these cows as one of his 12 labors. So do you see this guy right here? This is actually not 3 different dudes. This is one guy joined at the waist, but his feet all branch out. There's all these different feet. There's all these different arms and stuff. This is Geryon. Now, I believe Geryon is this. Okay? See, it's pinched right there in the middle. This is plasma. This is electromagnetic current. And at the bottom, it branches out. And it depends on what angle you look at it, how many legs you'll see, right? Depending on where you are in the world or where you're coming from, your direction, your trajectory. But in the middle, we've got what's known in plasma physics as a Z-pinch, right? Essentially where the plasma is attracted to itself because it creates its own magnetic field or gravitational field, you could say. But then it branches out again at the top. So these are the multiple arms, this is the waist, and these are the multiple legs of Geryon, where Hercules was said to go and to fight. Now check this out. What does that have to do with pillars, right? Not just the stretch of this, but Hercules, when he went on this mission, set up his own pillars. I don't know if you guys know this, but it's said that Hercules, we actually have something called the Pillars of Hercules. Let me see if I can pull that up. Pillars of Hercules. Booyah. Okay, now check this out. Let me go ahead and read this real quick because it's pretty important. Where's the story? According to Greek mythology, shoot, my bad. It's all kind of stirred up here. According to Greek mythology, adopted by the Etruscans and the Romans, when Hercules had to perform 12 labors, one of them, the 10th one, was to fetch the cattle of Geryon of the far west and bring them to some other guy. This marked the westward extent of his travels. Now think about this. We're talking about one of the gods of the world. Strongest dude ever, right? It's just all kinds of different missions he's gone on. He's done all kinds of crazy stuff, right? This is a god. And he marked the furthest he ever went in the world, they say it's westward, on his travels. Now, let's read on. A lost passage of Pindar, quoted by Strabo, was the earliest traceable reference in this context. The pillars, which Pindar calls the gates of Gades, also kind of reminds me of Hades, Gades. Anyway, the pillars which Pindar calls the gates of Gades, when he asserts that they are farthermost limits reached by Heracles. Man, that's hard to understand, isn't it? All right, let me break this down in layman's terms. Basically, Hercules went so far, traveled so far, that he established these huge pillars as a monument to how far he had gone, right? Now, check this out. They say that this right here, the Rock of Gibraltar, is one of the pillars of Hercules. Now, that would be cool. But the problem with that, even if this used to be a pillar that just was a gigantic, silica tree of some sort or whatever, and it got cut down, I don't know, whatever. I could make up a story for this. But the problem is, this is not very far from the origin of the story. This is just in the Mediterranean. This is just like right before the Mediterranean turns into the Atlantic Ocean. That's weird. I don't imagine that Hercules only got to the edge of the Mediterranean. This dude went everywhere. He was capable of going much, much further. So, do I think that the Rock of Gibraltar is one of the columns or the pillars of Hercules or Heracles? No, I don't. Where are these 2 pillars that Hercules set up? I'll give you a hint. They're the exact same pillars as the ones that are just outside of the temple of the world temple, right? Remember, there's one temple that has one central pillar inside of it, and then there's two pillars on the outside. Now, this is a Z-pinch. Why did I pull that up? I don't know. Anyways, we don't need to see that. Now, let's check this out. This right here is a map. Now, let's pretend that this was Hercules' map, right? Probably not, but whatever. This is an old map. I want to say from like the 1500s. It's hundreds of years old, right? Not a modern map, because as you can see, there's land. Like, here's the world. Let me zoom in a bit so you guys can tell where we are here. Let's see. What do we recognize? Okay, let's twist it a bit. I'm going to twist it around there. All right, I'm going to twist it a couple more times. One more time. There we go. Okay, so this over here is America, essentially. You can see this is like Florida, Mexico down here, California. Now it's a little different, okay? I'm going to give you that. There's actually a whole island off to the side right there. Interesting. In the map, they say that those are the Japanese islands, which is pretty interesting too. But this is about where I'm located. This would be like Colorado. Let's go to the North Pole. Let's go check this out. Because right in the middle, if there is land, if there is a plasma volcano that is known as the temple of the world or the temple of God, at right smack in the middle, because that's where God lives in many religions, it's the North Pole, right? The God of the North, etc. It's always up there. Let's zoom in and see if we can see anything that might resemble oh, bummer. So in the middle, they actually don't show it on this map because they have all this other stuff. Or do they? Because there's this interesting red circle. Anyhow, my point is, in the Mercator map, he shows that there's actually a volcano in the middle, or a mountain, or a black rock that he calls Rupas Negra. I believe that that's the plasma volcano that shoots up the blue beam from the middle, creating the spine of the world, the central pillar to our world. So if that's the case, let's imagine that there is a central pillar right here. Now it can disappear every other apocalypse, and it does, right? It recedes back into Hades, it gets pulled down into the underworld, it goes into Tartaria, or whatever you want to call it. But then every other apocalypse, boom, it shoots up into the sky. So if we found the middle pillar, we should be able to find two others that flank it on each side. Let's check it out. Let's look around. Oh, wait a minute. What do we have here? Do you see this thing? Let's check that thing out off to the side. Let's check it out. Oh, wait a minute. Let me turn this around for us. Boom, boom, boom. All right, pull it up a little bit. Can you read that? Let's make it as big as humanly possible. There we go. Now, this is a picture of a mountain, or a column, or a pillar, whatever you want to call it, okay? With a hole in the middle. Interesting. Just like a volcano has a hole in the middle. What does it say? Well, it's Italian, and it says polo. Polo. Just like your little brands that you wear, there was somebody holding a stick up in the air. Polo means pole. Polo de magneta. The magnetic pole. Interesting. So there's one tower. Possibly there's one column, there's one of the rods, etc. Now this right here is the temple, right? Here's one pole on the outside. Here's the middle one, which is wisdom, right? There should be one directly across. Let's find out. What do we have here? Let's flip that around so we can read it. Now at first you might only see this word, which is sort of faded. It says, it looks like it says Husi Arca. I tried to look this up. I do know the word arca means arch, essentially, or arc. This, I don't know if it's Husi or not. I think this is actually a faded F, and I don't know if this is an H, and I can't tell if there's something else here. But the reason I need to figure this out is because you can see there's some faded words above this one as well. It's a picture of a gigantic column, a pillar, a huge rock sticking out of the ocean. And it says polo de, or of, polo something. I cannot read that word. I tried so many times. Watch. Let me bring up a picture of, where'd it go? Nope, not that one. There we go. All right, let me see if I have it on here. It should be one of the last pictures. Yeah, see, you still can't tell right there either. All right, well, let me get rid of that one. So, going back to where we were. Am I there? Yes, I am. All right, so here's one of the pillars of Hercules, okay? Here's one of the columns of Freemasonry. Here's one of the columns that's outside of the Great Temple, which is our world is a temple, okay? Or a house, or whatever you want to call it. We got one here, we've got one in the middle, and we've got one directly across. It is possible that when that light and that energy reverses, that the light doesn't just come out of the middle. I believe that's the main place it comes out of, but it's very, very likely that the light from inside of our world shoots out through all of the cavernous systems in the world, which makes sense. If that's true, it would make sense that all of the caves would be seen as like holy places where gods are born and strange things happen with superpowers, electromagnetics, etc., all kinds of different things, right? Now, that is the pole. That is the worship of the column, the pillars, the rods, the towers, the poles. There's a million other names for it. Not a phallus, okay? It's a fallacy that it's a phallus, actually. Actually, let me prove it to you, okay? Because the pole comes up out of Mother Earth, so it can't be a phallus. Isn't that interesting that the female would have something that is a male symbol, and the male god above would have something that's more female? Interesting. Keep that in mind when you're looking up your Freemasonic symbolism, by the way. All right, so we found the three pillars. We found the Pillars of Hercules. We found the central column. We found the pole god itself. I'm going to go ahead and take this down now. So imagine this, right? You're looking at all of these depictions. Now, this is just Egyptian, right? But imagine all the times you've seen these various gods, and they have staffs every time across the board. Boom. They've got a staff, they've got a stake, they've got a crucifix, they've got a pole, they've got a spear, they've got something, a walking stick, whatever it is, wizards, all of this stuff. But have you ever considered this? What if what you're looking at, that I'm showing you right here on the screen, it looks like various gods at first. But what if it's not? What if the pole in the picture is actually the god and the person next to it is accompanying the pole? The person next to it gives meaning to what they're trying to say about the pole. The pole itself, the staff itself, the rod is the god. And they're all holding on to it as little side notes. Think about that. All right, so that is my presentation for today. I hope that you all enjoyed it. I was not in the chat this entire time. Let me go ahead and jump in the chat. Let's see. Let me stop sharing my screen. I also wanted to say I'm super sorry about the technical difficulties earlier today. My microphone broke. This one right here is a brand new fancy one. So, you know. Yeah, it's worth it, you know, it's worth it. It's for you guys. And I know some people were like, bro, just don't use a good microphone. Just use a crappy microphone. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Not even close. This is going to be such a good presentation. There's no way I have to use a good microphone. So yes, let me jump in the chat real quick, see who's in here. I did get a couple of super chats too. So I do want to give a huge shout out to Irregular Absolution. Thank you. I appreciate you. And, oh, we got a new member at the Good Vibe Tribe, Faultline Spin. Welcome, Faultline Spin. Let me see if I can give any other wow, there's 396 people watching right now. That blows my mind. Did you guys have a good time? Did you enjoy? Did you glean something from it? That's my hope. My hope is not that you believe everything I just presented to you. My hope is not that you side with me or take a stand or anything. I just hope that I gave you something that's of value that you can use in the Rolodex and the library of your head, you know, to help you out on your path and to help you out on your journey. That's why I do these presentations, right? So I find it very interesting. If you would like to know more about the pole god, I did a really compelling short video about it. And it's on my short video playlist as well. I'm pulling it up right now. What was it called? Oh, it's called Top Secret, the Medusa Event, right? So check that out. Tiffany, look at you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Man, you guys are so cool. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for buying my book. Thanks for the super chat donations and stuff. It helps me to get brand new microphones and stuff when things break down. So it really does mean a lot to me. I want to give a shout out to the people who did the stuff today. Where is it? Boom. Here we go. So we've got Drew L. Thank you, Drew L. Tiffany Vinci, of course. I appreciate you with a little super chat sticker. Irregular Absolution made a few contributions. Thank you. I appreciate you very much. So I love you guys. I do want to jump in the chat because I said I would, so I'm actually getting it pulled up right now. Let's see here. Drew, hey, thanks a lot, Drew. I appreciate you. Man, everyone's being super cool. All right. Does anyone have any questions? That's really all I want to ask. Okay. I don't have a lot of extra time. I'm going to do way more of the campfire episodes. So if you guys want to know more about this, feel free to call in during the campfire so that you can pick my brain. But for right now, do you have any questions about anything that you've learned today? Or is there anything that you've learned that you thought was of interest to you? I'd love to hear about it right now. Before we go, I'll take the first 3 comments, and then we're going to check out the credits, because I worked on some brand new credits, and I want to give back to you guys. I want you guys to see all the people that support my channel. All right, I am not seeing any questions or anything. I'm going to have to read the chat later on, probably tomorrow morning when I'm drinking my coffee and studying and stuff. I'm going to read you guys' chat stuff tomorrow. We got Sally Perry, who says, awesome, J Dreamers. Cool. You're still awesome. Thank you. Feisty Face says, J Dreamers, I just watched a Norwegian film called Mortal. It's all about your plasma. It's on Prime now, and I think that you'd find some yummy nuggets buried in the film. Awesome. I'll check that out. We've got Spells of Truth. I see the C word. I'm not going to read that one. We got Neutroy, who says, J Dreamers, I was looking at pictures of rods, the flying squiggly creature seen on camera. I also want to thank all of you who kept your wits about you during the presentation and didn't just make a bunch of body part jokes the whole time. I mean, it is kind of funny, but, you know, I do appreciate it, so we can focus. History Quest says, J Dreamers, I think Joan Baez was a trans, 3rd pillar. No idea what you're talking about. All right. Well, with that, I love you guys. Thank you so much. Please leave lots of comments telling me what you thought about this. I'm going to read the chat and everything else tomorrow. Until then, until next time, I'm J Dreamer saying good vibes and goodbye. I try so hard to